Hello, everyone. Welcome from Search to Discovery, a podcast about e-commerce leaders and how they're getting to find people to fall in love with their products. I'm your host, James Novak. Today, we're talking about a brand that's products are being used by billions of people every day, Microsoft. We'll be chatting all about their innovative approach to selling online, generative AI, and how they've set out to solve choice paralysis for millions of consumers. I'm joined here today by Ram Iyer. Ram is the Senior Director of Digital Strategy and E-commerce at Microsoft. Thanks for chatting with me today, Ram, and how you doing?
No, thank you, James. I think I'm excited about this podcast because I think as much as this is going to be a sharing experience from my side, it's also a learning experience because I think we always learn through the process of dialogue, and I've always enjoyed my conversations with you with the long relationship that we've built with
Awesome.
Zoo over the years.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So why don't we start here, Ram? Just tell us a little bit about Microsoft's approach to e-commerce in general and what makes that unique and different from your perspective.
No, I think it's a great question. I think the best place to start, James, is with the customer. When we look at Microsoft, we broadly operate in the consumer space in two customer solution areas. The first one is devices and creativity. This is where we have the Windows PCs. We have Surface, which is our own line of PCs, and Microsoft 365, which is, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all the apps we love. And then we get into the other side, which is gaming, where we is the second customer solution area where we have Xbox, the most powerful console on the planet, and then Game Pass, which is the Netflix of games. Now we go to market on both these solution areas through our direct channel, which is Microsoft.com. But a large part of our business, James, happens through our retail partners, and we work with partners. I think over 300 retail partners globally. Start naming a few like Best Buy, Amazon, Currys, JD.com in GCR, JB Hi-Fi in Australia. So we work with a range of partners across the globe. Now, from an e-commerce perspective, when I look at it, I think there are two fundamental things that I really kind of look at as pivotal when we think about e-commerce. One is what we've seen over the years, and I know we all want to forget the last what happened 4 years ago with the pandemic, but there was one fundamental inflection that happened at that point in time, which is consumers got more comfortable with technology and embraced a digital first mindset to shopping, which means that 8 out of 10 consumers today actually start their customer journey online. No matter where they buy, they will start their journey online. So
Yep.
that's one key tenet in terms of the e-commerce principles that we look at. And the second piece is that the customer journey is no longer linear. It is more like a spaghetti maze, if you may, where consumers constantly bounce between online and in store. And so, really taking a customer centric view to e commerce is more important now than ever before than taking a channel centric view.
Right.
So, that's really where I see how we have embraced this entire principle of customer centric view of e-commerce at Microsoft in comparison with some of our
Yeah.
other things as well.
In many ways, it's a more complex world, right? When I have a non-linear approach to a customer journey. So you have, in one hand, you have this complexity of a customer journey, which is non-linear. They're going to bounce around to different channels, different modes, different places to discover. And at the same time, Microsoft, you partner with a lot of the products that you mentioned, for example, Windows laptop devices that are different brands. And so you not only have a complex journey for a customer, but now you have a complex product set for customers in a lot
Yes.
of times. And so that takes us to one of the areas that we talk about a lot, which is around choice paralysis. So how have you seen choice paralysis impact customers, and where does that start in that spaghetti maze of customer journey?
No, I think it's a really a great question again. When you look at choice paralysis, just to make this real, right? If you were to just go on Best Buy site and just type laptops on the search bar,
Yep.
guess what happens to you as a shopper? You get 18 pages of PCs which are listed. I did this morning. 1,334
Yep.
SKUs that will come there. And to me, that is a pretty daunting experience for a shopper. It's not at all liberating. So imagine this is the first moment of truth for the shoppers in the journey, and this is what they get to see. Now, combine that with what you said, which is the complexity of the product. They are hit with the sea of sameness because what you're seeing here is products that look similar, they appear similar, and given all this, what really happens is that instead of stimulating the buying emotion, which is what consumers are excited to get to buy a
Mm.
PC, we are doing the exact opposite. In fact, a quote which um, a consumer shared with me was that buying a PC at times is more complex than buying a car,
Yeah.
and it kind of stuck with me because quite honestly, we make it so difficult for consumers to really shop. And this then leads to a key issue which we all deal with in e-commerce, which is cart abandonment. So we have the stat which clearly shows that 1 in 3 consumers abandon the purchase because they're so overwhelmed by this experience that they say, look what, it's so complex. I don't want to buy. I'll just postpone the purchase to another time.
Yeah. It's really interesting. We see a lot of the same things with multiple brands all over the world, which is there's the impacts are real, right? The impacts are around cart abandonment, which is ultimately conversion rate,
Yes.
but also there's customer happiness index, right? Customer
Yes.
satisfaction, QSAT areas, which is, hey, I bought something, but I have fear of better options, FOBO, right? Like,
Yeah.
did I buy the right thing? I don't know. There was 1,300 other laptops. How did I know that this was the right one for me? And then, you know, gosh forbid that it was actually like they didn't get the right laptop, and now they're having to exchange that laptop or return because it's not meeting their needs. That's
Yes.
bad on the brand, Microsoft. It's bad on the retailer. It's costly in both scenarios and creates a terrible customer experience. So I think, one of the things I wanted to ask was why is solving choice paralysis important? But I think we covered a lot of that in terms of all of those areas. Is there like one? Is it conversion rate for you? Like, what's the one place where you're like, this is the one that we want to impact most?
Yeah, I think, from a customer perspective, James, what you said is absolutely right. Our goal as a brand should be to make it easy for consumers to discover products, to learn more about products, to buy the product with a minimum number of clicks. And most important, going beyond the transaction,
Mm,
to create an emotional connection with the brand, which creates fans for life, right? Because as you rightly said, what we are trying to do in this journey is to really build that brand love, which is
right.
so important for all of us. And if the experience is not delivering that brand love and is actually taking away and creating a negative sentiment that goes against the very premise of offering a great customer experience, especially on e-com sites. Because when you look at e-com sites, you go and look at two sites. I always say that e-commerce feels more like e-commodity because
Yeah.
you remove the header of the brand and you put the sites side by side. They almost look similar. So you need differentiators that really make that experience better. Now, getting back to your question, what's the most important metric for us to really look at? I think obviously conversion is critical, and conversion is what add to carts, and conversion is what really helps us understand did we really lend a hand to the
Yeah.
consumer
Customer
as a
votes with they vote with their dollars, right? If they're willing to part with their money, then you've gotten to the right emotional place.
Yeah, that is right. And I think the piece which you said about building confidence in choice is really, really critical because what you want to make sure is that you're helping consumers find the product which is best suited to their needs, rather than giving them something and then getting them into a post-purchase dissonance, which creates friction in the entire buying experience.
Yeah. it's super complex in a lot of ways, but in some ways, when you boil it down to its simplest forms, you're like, how do we get the right consumer into the right mindset, picking the right product? And in particular, in Microsoft, when you talked about, Xbox, most powerful gaming console,
Yes.
or Surface, or Windows 11, or Windows laptops, I should say, that these aren't purchases that consumers make every day, right? They
Yes.
would buy a gaming platform once every few years, a laptop, the same thing, once every few years. So there's an education process that exists during the purchase journey, which I think is part of our overall theme here. When you're searching for something you know. When you're looking to discover, you're looking to learn at the same time that you purchase, and that becomes this nonlinear approach to buying.
Totally. You're 100% right. And the other piece which is there, James, is that different consumers are at different levels of product knowledge and sophistication, right?
Mm,
So you need to make sure that there is an experience which addresses, the novice who really doesn't know too much about the product. And you also have to appeal to the tech savvy
right.
shopper who knows a lot more about the product. So making sure that we offer a consistent experience both across in store and online, because I
Yep.
think you can't say that, hey, I'll offer this great service in store where I'll have a blue shirt from Best Buy who's going to give this white glove experience to the shopper. The reality is that consumers are starting their journeys online, and so given that that's an imperative, we need to solve for that experience get go right from the moment they
Yep.
start journey online.
Yeah, you said something that's probably could be a tagline of this podcast, which is e-commerce equals e-commodity. I like that. We'll use that somewhere else along the line here. So, Ram, maybe help with the audience here. Share some of the ways in which you and the teams at Microsoft, with your partners, are reducing choice paralysis. Like, what are some of the areas in which you've implemented?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. And I think, first of all, just a huge thank you to Zoo for being such a great partner. I go back to my days as Smart Assistant, where we started our journey,
Yeah.
which is many moons ago, where we used to have a quiz, where we used to ask consumers simple, easy to answer questions. From there, we evolved to what we call as a conversational AI assistant, um, which was the next avatar, if I may say, of the help me choose solution that we have today, where we use the power of conversational AI to interact with consumers, figure out like how can we help them answer a simple questions to get them the PC which is best suited to their needs, to today where we have really evolved the solution toward with a Gen AI solution, which is where we've now made it not just help them find the PC, but also answer any questions that they may have about the PC. So, when consumers ask the question, what is RAM? It will say it's not me. It is about the random access memory of the computer. So it gives them a very contextual and precise answers to those questions. And it demystifies all this in simple language, which
Yep.
is human speak, which is what I really like about the solution that we have built together. So if we truly look at it, James, I think what we've done is with the power of the Help Me Choose, we've really created a companion equivalent to an associate who would be there in the store,
Yeah.
who lends a hand to shoppers during the entire buying process and keeps them in the flow. Because I think the biggest thing is what you don't want consumers to do is to be on, in the journey of shopping and then bounce off to another site, go and search something in Google, get distracted by that, and then go into another rabbit hole which takes them into a different direction. So keeping consumers in the flow of buying is equally important. And I think that's something which we have seen work very well with Zoo, which is reflected in our completion rates. If you see our engagement and completion rates, they are in the high 80s, which gives us great confidence that this is not just any other experience. It's an experience where consumers are fully engaged, they're completing it, and they're also then taking it to the finish line by adding product to cart.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that I want to unpack there that I think are really important. The first is just how AI is kind of in the overall user experience. One of the things that we've talked about a lot is this concept of applied AI versus just
Yes.
AI that's bolted on to the side of an application or an e-commerce workflow. I think one of the things that we've learned, and you touched on it, and even got into some of the completion rate stats, is really that when AI is built into the workflow, so that
Mm.
it's easier for the consumer and meets their needs as they're going through this non-linear purchase journey, then that's when we see it perform best. When it's just this thing that's kind of like bolted onto the side at the end, then we don't, I don't think any brands or companies in the world are seeing those types of conversion rates and completion rates that Microsoft is seeing. So I think that's an interesting takeaway just around this concept of applied AI and making sure that, as a merchant or a brand or a retailer, that AI needs to be built into the workflows. And that's not an easy thing to do. We spent a lot of time with Microsoft building that workflow, figuring out what the next best question was for a consumer
Yes.
to keep them in that purchase flow. On that, Ram, what overall, from like, Gen AI hit mainstream a little over a year ago now, and like, how do you see consumer sentiment changing, or maybe even consumer behavior changing since Gen AI has become as mainstream as it has? Because we have to intersect the consumer. If they're not ready for it, then what we're trying to provide and the experiences we're going to try to provide will be met with some level of resistance. But I would imagine that you would have seen some positive consumer sentiment and change for Gen AI over the past year and a half minimum.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good observation. We do see, James, like especially in Gen Zs and millennials,
Mm,
one is that we see that they like chat as an interface. In fact, I spend more time texting my son as
yep.
compared to, speaking to him, and he's more comfortable just doing it naturally. It comes to them. And so chat's the new language, which is kind of emerging within that. And Gen AI actually is very chat friendly. Uh, Albeit now you kind of see with the advances in technology, you will see multimodal Gen AI applications. But what we've seen, at least from the data that we have seen, just in terms of the A/B test that we've done, even with our Gen AI solution,
Yep.
which is running, is that we see uh, 1 in 2 consumers more friendly to are willing to use Gen AI broadly in terms of a chat interface, but 1 in 3 shoppers actually, when they interact with the Gen AI chat solution, actually then go and click to the product as well. So that's a very powerful stat. It's not just about engaging with Gen AI, it's then taking the next action, which is to go to the PDP and add to the cart, which is pretty powerful, which means that Gen AI is useful in addressing the questions that the consumer had during the shopping process to help them navigate them forward in that journey, as opposed to getting stuck in the choice paralysis trap they were, which we alluded to earlier
Yeah.
in the discussion.
Yeah. So can you maybe give some color around just how the Microsoft e-commerce experience works? I mean, I know it well, but I think for the audience hearing it from you, but so help me understand how you take kind of the consumer from the journey of like, I land on the page, I'm search laptop, I get 1,300 results. Help walk the audience through, okay, what do we do next? How do we take them through that journey? And then where does Gen AI get introduced? And how does that finish off the journey for them?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. I think the most important thing is how do we help consumers and almost anticipate their need
Right.
in the sense that they're looking for a laptop, right? So this the Gen AI tool or the Help Me Choose tool needs to be intuitive from a discovery standpoint. So the moment you type laptops, you need to make sure that you have this Help Me Choose tool which shows up there as a part of the experience. Now, different retailers do this visibility at different levels of sophistication. We've seen increasingly now retailers understand the importance of bringing the Help Me Choose tool in front. It's like the metaphor I kind of say is that if you have the best blue shirt, You don't want him to be in the back of the house. You want
Yep.
them to be standing right there in front. So imagine if the website is the portal to buying, you want the help me choose experience to be front and center in terms of discovery. Now, once you click on that, then it's a very simple process. It's a very easy process. It'll ask consumers a few simple, easy to answer questions. What do you intend to use the laptop for? Is it for education? Is it for gaming? Is it for, just for entertainment? And so it's basically trying to understand the needs of the consumers. It also kind of
Right.
looks at budgetary considerations, which are important. And now that we've introduced this new set of PCs, which are Copilot Plus PCs, which is a new class of PCs. These are the fastest, most intelligent PCs that are there on the planet because they have the NPU. We also lead here in terms of education by showcasing that as an aspect, as a part of product discovery,
Yep.
and sharing with consumers, do you want to use, would you be interested in an AI PC? And that then helps them discover this new set of PCs as well. So it's not only helping them refine the choice to get to the best PC, which is best suited to the needs, but it's also helping them discover this new class or new category of PCs, which I find pretty powerful, because this is where we are going beyond discovery to education,
Yep.
and really making it easy for consumers to shop.
It's interesting. We often talk about, search is great if you know exactly what it is that you're looking for. But if you
Yes.
don't know what you're looking for, then you need discovery, right? And a consumer needs to be to help them discover what is the right thing for you. And a combination of that is education. A combination of that is understanding what's available, and a combination of that is figuring out what meets my needs, because every consumer has their needs. And you have made the comment about the blue shirt, the Best Buy blue shirts, which are phenomenal in store. You walk in, white glove, they're trained, they ask you questions, they understand who you are as a consumer, then they walk you to the right laptop and they say, hey, based on what you told me, this is, I think, the right one for you. Now let's answer some questions. How are you going to use it? Get your hands on it, etc. I think a large part of the discovery journey is making that experience digital. And that's
Mhm.
really hard when the catalog is 1,334 devices,
Yeah.
and they all look and feel the same. And then there's technical specs that are differentiating them, not user specs. So whether the RAM is, X versus Y, that might not
Yeah.
mean anything. But if you're a gamer, that might mean a lot. Or you use it for multimedia, that might mean a lot. So I think translating and using Gen AI to translate kind of some of these more technical areas on a purchase that is in some cases over $1,000 and happens every couple of years becomes really, really critical for a consumer to take them through this product journey. And so actually on that point, Ram, you talked about kind of multi-channel and in store. Um, and so Microsoft's strategy is relatively unique, or at least your go-to-market is relatively unique in this aspect, where you have a combination of direct selling for some of your consumer products, and then, as you mentioned, a large number of them through retailer partners around the world. I think you said a few hundred at a minimum. And so maybe help the audience understand the dynamic that brings to your business and your overall e-commerce experience. It's another level of complexity that I think needs to be navigated when you're developing digital tools to help your consumers have the greatest experiences on earth.
Yeah, I think this brings us to a really interesting. I think we talk about this term called omni-channel, and it's a phrase which is used a lot, but we got to make it real, because consumers start the journey online. Oftentimes, they will get into the store, they will do a, what I say, a test drive of the PC, just equivalent to test drive of a car. They want to kind of get hands on. They want to understand what this PC is all about, and sometimes they're in the store looking for the product. And even in that moment, I think what I find these days, especially with retailers, is that gone are the days where we would have specialists who are particularly associated to one particular department. So retail pros now kind of are selling TVs at one point in time. They're bouncing to the other section, selling PCs, and then they're selling washing machines. So I think this is where we've seen, again, just working with Zoo, we've created a retail pro companion for a retail pros so that they can use the Zoo Help Me Choose assistant even in store
Right.
as a companion to help them navigate through those choices and narrow down the choices to a collection if required, or a PC which is best suited to the needs of the shopper. Now, the important thing in this that we've done, James, is in this process of really building this true omni-channel experience, because we're delivering this experience online, but we can mimic that same experience in store, is that we have made sure that we have kept the human in the loop.
Yep.
In when it's online, it's the customer who's in the loop, along with Gen AI powered by Zoo, which then helps them make that decision. When it comes to in store, we have kept the retail pro in the loop. So on one end, while we have human is the pilot, and I think technology for me is the co-pilot. So we kind of have really embraced this notion of really keeping technology as a co-pilot and being a partner in the journey, be it online or in store,
Yeah.
of delivering that AI first experience to our shoppers.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, like, how have you partnered with retailers? I mean, a big part of Microsoft's strategy is to partner deeply in a lot of go-to-market, both on B2B and on the consumer side. So, like, how are you working with retailers to minimize complexity? Because they have like multiple categories. They're selling all sorts of consumer electronics. I mean, so both they need to succeed for you to succeed and for the consumer. like this is a big part, I think, of a lot of brands in the world where they think about this spectrum of like control on one end and like complete control and I control everything there is to know about the experience to I partner and we enable the channel to deliver value, and so how do you navigate that spectrum, and how have you guys thought about digital tools and in particular AI in
Yeah.
that challenge?
I think you said something very powerful there, that we are successful only when our partners are successful. So it
Hmm.
starts with that mindset that our fundamental role is to serve the two most important people in the business, which is consumers and partners.
Hmm.
So if we have that as a North Star, that's where it starts. And therefore we really need to embrace a partner first approach to delivering and this experience to shoppers in the relevant markets. Microsoft can have this one Microsoft experience, but it means nothing when it comes to delivering an experience in UK, for example, with a retailer like Currys, which is
Hmm.
like the biggest retailer in UK. We need to ensure that we are really tuning into the sensibility of the UK shopper. We are customizing the experience based on what Currys really needs on their site to make it look like a contiguous experience which fits into the overall Currys experience. We have to embrace some of the principles that Currys has in terms of ethos, in terms of delivering that experience both in store and online. So we always take a partner first approach to
Hmm.
building this experience, and I think that's where I think I am really thrilled. The partnership that we have with you is that we've not really taken this one size fits all approach.
Hmm.
Just because we built a solution, we don't just take that solution and apply it across all our sites. We really go the extra mile to make sure that the solution looks, feels like it's meant for the UK shopper. If there's language which we need to really address, for example, with the retailer in Middle East, everything we have to do it in Arabic, and this is where again we lean into the power of NLP to really kind of get everything translated into the natural language which is relevant for that particular market. So being contextually, culturally relevant and
Yeah.
delivering an experience which is personalized to the shopper is really, really important. And we really kind of work with our partners to make that happen.
Yeah.
The second piece there, James, is that I think for us, it all starts with trying to understand what are the big opportunities or problems that we can solve for our partners, which can help them drive growth.
Mm,
Because if we are not really not vested as trusted digital advisors to help them grow, we can keep driving the Microsoft agenda and say, hey, we got to sell this product, but it's not a win-win relationship in the true sense of it. And so for us to really make sure that we are grounding ourselves in partner truth, having partner empathy is the word I often use, and being totally obsessed about that, and really understanding where is it that we can really help them deliver growth becomes critical. And
yep.
those are elements which are very integral to even working and designing the experience. So it starts more in spirit before we even get to the science of making it happen.
Yeah, that's a philosophy of success with your channel.
Yes.
I certainly appreciate that view. Now, you said something, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, but you've kind of bounced around from Best Buy in the US, Curry's in the UK, and Middle East, and so the scope is rather large in kind of the go-to-market for an organization like Microsoft, truly a global, largest company in the world, and truly a global reach for the consumer products. One of the great things that these digital tools bring, not only from a consumer perspective, but also from a data and intelligence perspective. So you're getting all of this zero party data that enable you to understand your consumer real time, give product feedback real time, marketing messaging feedback real time. What are some of the areas that have been just most valuable to Microsoft and from a data intelligence perspective when really leaning in on discovery tools, but also the Gen AI that is now layered as a part of that? Like, what are some of the areas that have really been transformative from Microsoft, and I would imagine a very short period of time?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, and this is where I think we leverage the power of the analytics that we get from the backend Zoo engine as well, right? Because we know what questions are getting the best response, what questions are getting abandoned or getting skipped.
Hmm.
So we understand the most powerful questions that can be part of our selling process, if you may, and we can actually get that rich information just coming from the Zoo
Yep.
Insights database that gives us that. So first is understanding the most powerful questions, which can become part of our retail pro selling process. We get
Yep.
insights from that. The second is to really understand uh, product categories which are trending. Like for example, we see that gaming is one of the categories which tends to perform better. What do gamers prefer in terms of choices, and
Hmm.
therefore what kind of configs are important? Now that really helps both retailers and us, because then we start looking at our planogram assortments in terms of category planning. So it gives us early lead or insights into what's really happening. As we think of the new category which we are creating, like Copilot plus PCs, I think it will give us good insights into understanding what kind of consumers are
Right.
gravitating into this new category of PCs. So there's so much, James, to explore once we start looking at this vast tapestry of data that this presents. And the
Yeah.
beauty of this is that you get regional insights, which is very centric to a geography, and you'll see differences that exist between a Best Buy in the US to a Curry's in the UK to a Sharaf in the Middle East to a JB Hi-Fi in Australia. So I think sometimes, just understanding these differences and the nuances also kind of opens eyes to looking at each market very, very differently, as opposed to, looking at this just as a global play, which is important. But I think the reality is that consumers are different in every market, and we got to make sure that we are treating each consumer with that lens, as opposed to
Yeah.
a single paint stroke across all markets
I would
there.
imagine a lot of value in all three of those areas, right? Like understanding the consumer behavior, understanding implications for a product roadmap, real time, and then the third is the geographic or cultural differences based on the multiple markets that you're working in. Those are three very valuable areas. And traditionally, brands have spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to solve those questions using different tools. But, I think a digital approach to, a conversation and discovery with your customers can bring a lot of that insight into the organization really, really quickly. That's a really interesting way of thinking about it. So let me switch to maybe a little bit about the future as we wrap up here, Ram. So thinking back like 3 years ago, you had talked about you've been in the game for a while now, and you've seen the evolution of kind of e-commerce through that period of time.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that when you thought about product discovery 3 or 4 years ago, and you say, "Ooh, that was wrong. I didn't have that exactly right," or 3 years ago, and you're like, "Actually, I was pretty smart and I got that one right." Like, what was right and what was wrong 3 years ago, and then as a follow-on, what do you think you're going to say in 3 years from now about product discovery?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I think the one piece which I would say, we've been using, James, video first storytelling, which is
Mm,
we have something called Interactive Studio, which is there on a lot of our sites. We syndicate this and make this available to consumers. But what we've not solved for is that the video, after seeing a video, you still might have questions,
yeah.
and so we've left it to the consumers to their own devices to go and look at FAQs and answer those kinds. Some FAQs will answer questions, but we really didn't really go beyond the experience to see how could we create an interface which helps
Hmm.
consumers learn. So think of this evolution of help me choose, which is what we were focused on. But we didn't focus on help me learn. And I think the big pivot, which I think if I were to look back in hindsight, is probably we should have thought about help me learn 3 years back. We didn't think about it at all. Now, the reason why help me learn has got accelerated now also is because Gen AI acts as a catalyst, because
Of course.
you can ask every question, and therefore at that point in time we really didn't have the power of Azure OpenAI powered with Chat GPT and the engine delivering that experience. It was more a conversational assistant, or it would have been a chat bot which was
Hmm.
not really delivering that kind of rich contextual experience. And so I think for me, in hindsight, I think that's the one big learning, is that how do we transgress across discover, learn, buy, and engage stages of the journey and build Gen AI experiences which are relevant across various moments in the journey. Now, the one thing which I want to be careful is that we don't want to just throw AI on every and everything. We have to really start with what I would call a jobs to be done approach, or what is it that we are trying to solve, as opposed to just saying we want to do AI for AI's sake, because there is this thing about Gen AI being the shiny object and everybody wants to have a Gen AI application running. And that's not the right approach. I think you got to start backwards from the customer experience. What is it that you want to truly add as a part of the customer experience that you want to solve? So in our case, it's helping consumers learn more about product, helping consumers choose the right product when they buy, and then having bought the product, how do we make sure we complete the loop by educating them on how to use the product even better, so
Yeah.
that they can get max value out of the product. So I think that's, for me, is the piece which is which completes. Now, to your question on the future, I think the one fundamental thing that I see changing in the future is search is going to be disrupted, and it is about time that happens. We see a behavior that many consumers now start their journeys on retailer sites or on social. These are the two common areas where they will typically start search. Search does happen on search engines, but these are becoming even bigger than search engines these days.
Mhm.
So if you were to just look at retailer sites, right? On retailer sites, the typical way search happens is scroll searching, which is you typically type something and then you have to scroll through this 18 pages or 1334
Yep.
items to really get to the PC which you want. Now, imagine you flip that to goal searching, which means that you are in to get the best PC that you really need, or you're trying to build the best home office, even if I would expand it. And so if the goal is to build a home office, you not only need a PC, you need a monitor, you need a chair, you need a mic, you need a mic, you need headphones, you need the whole system that you really build. So imagine we can actually build with the power of agents this whole basket, which helps you complete the solution. And this is where I think one of the areas which we are working with you is help me bundle. How do we really create that complete
Yep.
package or solution? And not only create the solution, but with the power of agents, you're then able to take it to the next level, which is to take it to cart and complete the order. So
Right.
seamless experience, which puts the customer at the center, takes a solution centric approach to building what the needs are of the customer for the problem that or the solution they're seeking for, and a holistic one, not just a partial one of solving one of those things, helps and then also makes it frictionless to go and do a checkout. In my view, that's the um, you know the end state that I envision from a
Yeah.
search perspective, where this can evolve, which kind of is not just discovery, but is also kind of taking it to fulfillment.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Well, Ram, I that's probably the perfect place to end the podcast because I love that vision and I can't wait to go build it together. So Ram, first of all, I just want to thank you personally for an awesome conversation. Your insights are always valuable to me and to us, and I'm sure now to the broader community. And I'd like to thank everyone for listening. And until next time, this is the Search to Discovery podcast. Thanks.
Thank you, James. It was a pleasure, and I really appreciate and I'm grateful for the partnership with Zoo as well. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.